Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Lansing. Who am I? Well, I'm a dad, a citizen like you, just trying to make my way in this world. Good luck, right? By the way, this isn't me, this is a stock photo of someone else who's much better looking. But as a smoldering hot citizen dad, I'm concerned. There's a TV show on now, entirely fictional, that people are treating as if it's 100% real. It's called American Emperor. And the lead role is this maniac named Trump, who's running for election, or I should say re-election, for president. And the show is so realistic, with so many crazy characters and insane plot twists, people actually think it's real. Okay, breathe. Now, even though it's a compelling show in the same class with other hits like Succession or Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, I promise you, it's definitely fictional. There's no way anything like this, anything this crazy would happen for real. Anyway, just wanted to pop on to address it because it's fake. Guy's an actor. No way this happens in real life. And to let you know that me and a few of my friends and some special guests will be doing a podcast to talk about each week's episode. So thanks for listening, and hey, welcome to Talking Trump, the American Emperor Aftershow. This week, the contemptible held in contempt. The judge in the hush money trial says, "Hey asshole, hush!" finding our main character for violating his gag order and threatening to send him to the big house. And I'm not talking the quadruple mortgage Chinese spy hotspot in Mar-a-Lago. Looks like in order for Trump not to go to jail, he might have to do the impossible. Shut up. Rough day in court. When he wakes up, he's gonna be pissed. Plus, is the Trump character narcoleptic? In a stunning and powerful display of anti-woke behavior, Trump continues to fall asleep in court. Said his lawyers, could be worse, he could also be continuously farting. Oh wait, check that. Hey, this guy needs his rest. Do you have any idea how many trials he has? And did Kristi Noem blow her chance at being VP, or does she still have a shot? In a case with so many twists and turns, it's almost enough to keep Trump awake. Are the Supreme Court absolute douches for considering Trump for absolute immunity? Even Lindsey Graham says presidential immunity doesn't exist, although he is expected to say the opposite 5 minutes from now. A dizzying episode with storylines introduced and resolved at a frantic pace. This is Talking Trump, the American Emperor Aftershow. Oh, so much to get to. Let's jump in. I'm Christopher Lansing, and I'm joined by author, filmmaker, and pop culture critic Tom Robb. Welcome. Another phenomenal episode.
Incredible episode that's really turning storytelling on its ear.
A lot to cover. Let's start with this. The Trump character is being held in contempt for violating his gag order in the hush money trial.
The character they've designed is somebody that's basically saying fuck you to everyone every minute of the day. And that's his mass appeal.
Trump was fined $9,000, which is a tiny amount for someone who's positioned on the show to be a billionaire. And apparently, before the scene is even over, as the jib is pulling away, he's violating the gag order again.
I think what we're heading towards dramatically is that he actually be physically gagged, that a gag order come with a bandana tied tightly around his mouth behind his head. And
almost
so,
like in a sadomasochistic type of like image.
A ball gag would be great too. But I think that's what we're being teed up for.
So the producers and writers threw a bunch of things at the wall this week with this trial. We had a character named Pecker testify. The trial about Trump essentially having sex with a porn star. And are we hearing testimony directly from his dick? We're swearing in his frickin' brajol. The show often employs symbolism. This is not subtle.
Well, I'm not so surprised. Lonnie Cocktease, of course, and Anal Johnson were characters they floated before. It's not the most overt character name we've had.
I mean, we get it, Kubrick. He's in trouble for paying for sex. You don't have to hit us over the head with it.
Mr. Trump, do you still like pepper?
Let's talk about the choice that the Trump character is making to constantly be falling asleep in court. What do you make of the sleeping thing?
The falling asleep, truly pushing the limits of acting. Um, it's just incredible. The way he uses his eyes when he's sleeping. Um, it's just another shocker and another exciting way to reveal what's going on in this incredible confounding character.
Let me ask you this about the sleeping, though. Do you think it was a perfect opportunity for a dream sequence? And here's another question. Was the rest of that episode actually a dream that was occurring in our main character's mind? You know, a la Tony Soprano when he would go off on dream sequences for an entire show.
I think that would be true if we had gone into a past fashion show or some sort of Epstein house scenario, since what I've heard is that's the only thing that the Trump character dreams about. But I think right now, in his mind when he's sleeping, we just have bars and tone and a kind of coma sleep state. So that's all we'd be getting.
Now, one of the things that the show does, and part of the show's brilliance, is how it's always mocked convention. The show is often played with the concept of lawyers. In essence, they've equated them with clowns, and we've seen amazing characters in the show's run in this vein. When producers and writers made Trump's lawyer team look like the bad guys from Dick Tracy, you had that handlebar mustache guy, Ty Cobb, the guy with the enormous jowls, John Dowd, that Dershowitz character. They've always really put special effort into presenting these lawyer characters. Of course, that all gave way to that amazing performance from longtime character actor Carlo Ricci, who plays the Rudy Giuliani character in season 1. What an incredible arc that was. I guess my question is,
and of course, credit needs to be given to the makeup artist who used that squid ink to spray all over his head for that final sequence. But yes, you're right.
Is the show itself saying something about the profession of lawyers? Not only do they present these clowns, but they also show these arsonists. Remember, at the end of season 1, you had that team of psychopaths with that John Eastman character who was constantly trying to inform Trump on his insurrection. You had the Jenna Ellises, the Sidney Powells, a remarkable string of characters right there. And now, even into this new season, they're still bringing out new lawyers. How about that Alina Habba, who's just debuted this season?
Habba obviously was a move in that direction where they said, we don't need legal expertise, but somebody hot might be better than the Giuliani character, who's hard for anybody in the country to attach themselves to.
Now we're dealing with Trump going to these different trials now. Do you have any indications about the current lawyer figures and what we should expect from them?
I think with this latest character, he's his most serious lawyer to date. So less laughable, still strange. They're trying to move the clownishness into another area, possibly the Supreme Court.
Well, you brought up a very interesting point that I was going to bring up. This week, we saw the show position the Supreme Court to hear arguments from Trump's attorney that the Trump character has what amounts to be absolute immunity from prosecution for any acts he did when he was in the White House. This is a major deal in the mind of the Trump character, who thinks he can do whatever he wants. The argument, though, in a real-world context, is clearly ridiculous on its face, but it led to some incredibly interesting exchanges between these very skilled, excellent character actors. I want you to take a listen to this clip and let me know how it makes you feel.
If the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
It could, and why?
Because the characterization is that there's a series of official acts that were done for an unlawful.
No, because immunity says even if you did it for personal gain, we won't hold you responsible.
A lot to unpack there, not the least of which is the powerful choice of the lawyer character to not use a lozenge. What's your response?
My response is that it's simply good drama. But in this exaggerated version, it makes The Handmaid's Tale seem like the Gilmore Girls. Can a president assassinate people? Well, of course, they all always have. Lincoln, of course, killed a cook with a saber. Washington had people buried alive on his farm. But, for a modern president, this is not normal behavior. And so it's making this character more exciting, more interesting.
While we're on the subject of the Supreme Court, I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of the other characters that are in this orbit of the Supreme Court, because it could very well be, Tom, that these become more prominent as we get down the road in season 2. Just give me a couple of lines on what stands out for the following characters. They have this Justice Alito character.
The Alito character is comic relief. He's from New Jersey. That's obviously a huge joke. He's embarrassed about that, deeply concerned, and spends most of his time passing laws that will conceal that.
What about Clarence Thomas?
The Thomas character is usually sort of doing comical things like raiding the refrigerator, being seen going into, old school porn shops, surfing internet porn, and being caught by his unattractive wife in his office. This is the kind of thing they have him do. And he brings a certain kind of panache to that.
He's got that crazy wife character. I think he's the type of long-suffering husband type character, only elevated to a level where he is at the height of jurisprudence, and that's an interesting combination. We saw her in season 1. The character of his wife is just crazy. She finds conspiracy and everything. Yet he loves her, and then he has to go to this very important job.
Well, yes, and then that scene they had with her and a wife beater in the Capitol trying to set fire to paintings and making out with a statue of Justice Taney, who, of course, was a famous Supreme Court racist responsible for the Dred Scott decision, was strange and ironic.
Also a powerful image, and
a little bit arousing. So there are a bunch of different directions they can go with that.
Well, we're coming up against the break, but when we come back, we're going to answer some of your questions. That's right, it's listener mail right here on the show. You're listening to Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show. Now, right now, we're going to answer some emails from you guys. By the way, if you want to send us an email or a question, hit us up on Instagram at American Emperor After Show. First one comes from Rebecca Conroy of Madison, Wisconsin. She says, what character do you feel writers and producers are positioning most for VP? This is an interesting question. And do you think that storyline will get more and more attention in the coming weeks? Tom, who pops to mind when you think about who they're going to position for VP?
Until the most recent episode, I would have said Kristi Noem. Her criminal enterprises, her strange dental advertisements she makes will be attractive to the criminal element that makes up 70 or 80% of Trump's voting base. Of course, she killed a pet dog. She killed a goat. Apparently, she killed a simple-minded stable boy by electrocuting him.
Now, we don't have 100% confirmation on that.
She won't stop killing things and talking about it. So I think they'd position a character who hasn't overtly murdered something that Americans have a soft place in their hearts for.
Now, remember, the show's always been good at giving the Trump character a catchphrase, and one of the more popular ones that he used for a while was "like a dog."
He died like a dog. He lied like a dog. Choked like a dog.
Clearly, there's a dog trauma that's happened in his background that we still have not fully seen. I anticipate we'll see it before the end of this run, though. But is the gnome character, knowing that Trump uses that phrase like a dog all the time, not knowing exactly why, does she come public with this idea of killing a puppy to gain his favor? And did she kill the goat just because he witnessed? I don't understand the goat part. It's kind of a departure for these writers.
I would say for this character, no mas. It's not going to happen. I think they took the character too far. I think they thought it would endear them to the American people, who've shown a sort of murderous bent lately. But I think they decided they can't win the hearts of people with a character who kills so many things so much of the time.
Great stuff. For me, there's a lot of speculation about the character of Elise Stefanik. This show is at its absolute best when they are exploring the Shakespearean or Greek tragedy type moments. Here you have a character, Stefanik, that the writers and producers have painted. They've taken a lot of time to present her as this woman from upstate New York who worked her way into Harvard, tried to serve the people of her community, and then when the Trump character emerges, she just flat out sells out every single touch of her personal integrity to kind of gain favor with the Trump person. There's almost nothing she won't do. She's referred to those January 6th rioters from the finale of last season as hostages. She will do anything to gain his favor, and I believe more so than almost anyone in the show will sell her soul out. They made this brilliant decision of casting a woman for that role who, let's just face it, is not an attractive woman. As it comes time for her to try to get that VP nominee, she's going to have done all the work. She's going to say, hey, I check all these boxes. I've been faithful and loyal to you, Trump. And he's going to turn her down. Why? Because she's hideously ugly. That's the number one value that this Trump character has.
Well, never before has the inner hideousness and evil of a character been better reflected by outward grotesquerie. You know, she's from a long line of aluminum siding people, which is a known criminal enterprise. And she is probably the most devious snake in the history of American politics, which makes her attractive to Trump. But at the same time, to have something that's so visually offensive at every minute of the day, I don't think he could handle that.
I heard when it came time to cast this particular role, Phyllis Smith from The Office came in to read for it, and producers and directors told her to dress it down some. So they had their eye on a particular look, and they definitely nailed it with this actress.
I heard the same thing. Ann Dowd from Handmaid's Tale came in, and they said, you're simply too hot. So I think we're on the right track here.
This next question comes from Kyle Remington of Concord, New Hampshire. Says, great as the show is, why do you think numerous plot lines are so often dropped as far as exposition, follow through, and even resolution? I'm still miffed. Last year, they killed off Ivana Trump. We kind of heard about it almost as an afterthought. You know, it's a very good point. Like we were talking about, plot lines are completely abandoned at times. Here you have that Ivana Trump character, who's the mother of the most precious thing in the Trump character's life, Ivanka. We get introduced to her, and then by page 25, she's dead and buried in a golf course. Like, what is with the plot lines and the way they're dropped?
I think there are a number of things going on. In that particular case, I think Davies slept with the actress and his wife found out about it. I also think they're trying to keep the audience guessing by changing direction every 5 seconds so that you know this character is insane and capable of nothing rational.
Let's talk about some other quick plot lines that were completely abandoned that I wonder about. How about that whole plot line where Jared Kushner character would be solving the problems of the Middle East?
Well, you have a character, Jared Kushner, who was groomed to be a vampire character with jet black hair and vicious-looking incisors, cadaverous and thin like Nosferatu, and he doesn't look like he's going to last in the Middle East, a very hot place, a place where it'd be very hard to have a refrigerated coffin and where there's a great deal of sunlight. So I think that was simply a mistake that wasn't thought through.
You know, and I'll have to say this: that character, while completely detestable and a clear creature of the night, you know, you saw those scenes where he would be looking for food in the middle of the night. He's taking the blood of rats and stuff. I mean, it was they went a long way in showing just like his desperation as a cold-blooded killer. That actor had to, you know, that actor lost a lot of weight to be in that role. Like I heard, not only did he not go in the sun for 9 months prior to filming to get that kind of paleness, he also constantly was using industrial moisturizer on his skin to make it look so milky.
Well, yes, he pulled a complete Jared Leto or McConaughey from Dallas Buyers Club. He lost 100 pounds. And I think he was promised that he would be solving diplomatic problems in Transylvania, Hungary, or Romania. And it made sense to him. So he invested the time and learned some Slavic languages. So that's a case where they just made a tactical error in research and probably didn't listen to the political advisors that are on staff that make this so real.
Yeah. And also the other thing is when his character appeared on the screen, he tested very poorly with audiences. It's one thing to have a character who's a villain, known great villains in the history of television and the history of like storytelling. But this character was just so detestable immediately. The minute-to-minute ratings plummeted whenever he would show his face on screen. You read that article in the Washington Post about how in one scene there was just a picture of him on the mantle, and the ratings went down.
And I heard that when they wanted Sydney Sweeney to play his wife, who would have been an excellent choice, she refused to even return their phone calls. She hated him so much.
I believe the story was she entered a room to meet the actor she would be working with. She saw him and got very upset. And I don't know if you know this, she has a very overprotective brother who actually followed her in there, saw how upset she was, and actually physically beat the actor who played Kushner because he was trying to protect his sister.
I had heard that.
And of course, at that time, the Kushner character bruised very easily. How about that plot line that I thought was going to be so exciting, where the Trump character announced that he was interested in building a moat along the southern border and filling it with alligators and other apex predators to make it difficult for migrants to kind of enter the country. I was very excited to see that. That would have definitely provided for a series of amazing action sequences, but we never saw anything like that. What do you think's behind that? A cost issue?
I think it's a cost issue. I think a lot of these ideas come from Davies, who has far too much power and who is a huge science fiction fan. I know he wanted a 70-foot wall of flame surrounding the White House. I know he wanted a White House in space, and wants to be wearing a spacesuit in a number of his public addresses. So once talking him down from that, I think they simply said having lions and tigers and hippos on the Mexican border and feeding them and having trainers and whatnot, animals from different continents that are incompatible, boa constrictors, would all be jammed in this deep trench and have to be maintained on,
These are animals that should never see each other in the course of their lives. They're not designed. We have an orca is never supposed to see a tiger. You know what I'm saying? They're completely in different habitat.
Exactly. Tigers and gorillas. I mean, you have growlers, which are a combination of a grizzly and a polar bear because of global warming, and that's caused enough trouble. But you introduce them to a Siberian tiger, or a wolverine, or a pack of North American wolves, and you've got trouble. You've got trouble maintaining order on a set.
And also, like there are rumors on Reddit. I've seen this written about a lot that the show caved to pressure from PETA, but that's not actually true. As you and I know, Davies had absolutely no time for any kind of PETA protest. Had famously on the set, he walked up to the people who are outside of the gate of the studio, summoned a hawk, and then in front of them, he famously snapped the hawk's neck. Famously, he snapped the hawk's neck in front of him and dropped the hawk and walked away. and they backed off.
Well, yeah, and what I've heard is prior to that, years ago, 30 years ago, he did that repeatedly when he was in the film Lady Hawk. And these were animals that were hired for the film.
He had to be replaced, as you know, and they recast him with Rutger Hauer. He had to be replaced, as you know, and that's how they recast. One second. Stop. As you know, he had to be replaced, and they recast him with Rutger Hauer. And Davies later in his memoir wrote that it was one of his most regrettable decisions because he blew a chance to work with a young Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Which I don't think any of us would squander because she still looks great.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for those emails. Please keep them coming. Again, if you have a question or an email for us, hit us up at Instagram at American Emperor Aftershow. When we come back, we're going to close the show out with a few predictions of what to look for in the coming weeks. More Talking Trump, the American Emperor Aftershow, when we return. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show. Right now, before we close out the show, we're going to do a couple of quick predictions for what to look for in the coming weeks. Tom, the floor is yours. What do you predict we'll be seeing in an upcoming episode?
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Chief Justice Roberts, serial killer. And he's going to be somebody who kills only other Supreme Court justices. Let's watch for that.
I like that very much. My prediction is that the work begins on the Trump character library, and what we see is a person bankrupt a library. Look for Trump to begin work on a library, and then, of course, it goes into bankruptcy.
I think that's a great prediction. Also, this character famously hates books, loves to burn books, and doesn't really read. So I think we're looking at a library that's composed mostly of comic books, maybe some graphic novels, but that he charges the general public for and then burns down for the insurance money.
Yeah. Maybe he's going to say, look, anybody can bankrupt 4 casinos. I don't even know in the history of the world has there ever been a bankrupted library. We could be, in unprecedented areas here.
I think even those things outside cafes that say take a book, leave a book are solvent. So it would be interesting to see somebody bankrupt, basically unbreakable entity.
Business model. Yeah, exactly. All right, that's about all the time we have for this week. Please join us next week. This has been Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show.